Let's bring in Adam Parkhomenko, Democratic strategist. He might have a few thoughts on Kimmel and so on. Hey, Adam, great to see you. Adam runs the Alt Media Substack. And my man, you and I have been talking about doing this for some time. I'm glad we finally made this happen.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I love the fact that, first of all, Randy is the best. I've known her for 20 years. She has an incredible new book. Yeah. And I love that you can just keep going on an interview and not have to worry about a commercial break or a deadline here.
Exactly. This is independent media. We don't deal with that corporate bullshit. You know, we don't have, nervous executives wringing their hands in a boardroom or an office saying, oh gosh, Jim and Adam, we got to make sure they don't say anything controversial. We got to make sure.
And we were texting before, and I knew that Randy was going a little long, so I figured I had enough time to take a shower after all of today's news. So appreciate that too.
We all need a shower after this week, I think. Adam, I'm sure you saw the new Epstein file documents came out. Let's talk about this. The House Oversight Dems put out some new documents this afternoon. And one of the documents, I'm sure people are starting to come to grips with this at this moment, but one of the documents shows apparently Elon Musk was slated or scheduled at some point to go to the Epstein Island, it says, back in December of 2014.
And as soon as I saw this come through, I saw there was a Reed Weingarten and an Adam P. And so I had to look a little closer here just to make, but these are not Randy Weingarten or
nor Adam Parkhomenko. But it also mentions Prince Andrew is mentioned here. Steve Bannon is mentioned in these documents. Peter Thiel is mentioned in one of these documents. Bill Clinton, I think, is also mentioned, and Larry Summers. So, I mean, the House Oversight Dem said, hey, you know what? We're putting out documents. Doesn't matter if it's Republicans or Democrats. But what's amazing about this, Adam, is, earlier over the summer, it was Elon Musk who said, yeah, Donald Trump won't release the Epstein files because he's in the Epstein files. I guess Elon Musk had some authority in this subject.
Yeah. I mean, what's so interesting to me is, when there was sort of that at least first or second temporary breakup between Elon and Donald, we saw that sort of famous tweet, from Elon talking about Trump being in the Epstein files. And I think this was a little bit of a surprise for a lot of people. For a long time, we've heard Steve Bannon wanted to build a wall, and Elon Musk wants to build on Mars. But turns out that those were both excuses for just hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein.
I mean, it's something weird. And I guess we're starting to peel back the layers of the onion. But this is why Donald Trump does not want to release the Epstein files. His buddies are in there. His donors are in there. I mean, it's starting to make a little more sense. I mean, he's in there, obviously.
I think one of the weirdest things from like a political consultant standpoint is, why would you spend so much time during a campaign talking about getting to the bottom of the Jeffrey Epstein list and getting in office and releasing the Epstein list and so forth, ultimately to have your FBI director come out and, of all people, be asked by Senator Kennedy, right? Is there an Epstein list? Who's on it? And his response was, there was only one person who trafficked women and girls on this list, and that was Jeffrey Epstein, putting aside the fact that, Maxwell is where she is. But the idea that these individuals not only ran a campaign on this, but are allegedly, and I say this as somebody who spent 15 years working for the Clintons, the Republicans are spending all their time right now protecting Bill Gates and Clinton. I mean, it's just very strange.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they're the ones who were saying all along, oh, the Clintons are going to be there, and all these Democratic figures are going to be in there. And then I think as soon as Pam Bondi and Kash Patel had those FBI agents, go through the files and say, oh shit, there's Peter Thiel's in here, Elon Musk is in here. We better shut this. We better shut.
And you're bringing up a different point, probably, that we should touch on. But the fact that we are where we are right now, first of all, the Wall Street Journal, when they reported the letters in the birthday book, one of the letters that was in the Wall Street Journal for comparison is a letter that I own. And I started working for Hillary back in 2003, and there was a bunch of crap that they were getting rid of. And at the time, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Letter from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton, congratulating her on her win, not knowing very little about him. But ultimately, that signature was identical to the one in the book. And I think
Right.
Republicans are very good at using, there's a difference between conspiracy theories and criminal conspiracies. Republicans are very good at using conspiracy theories to cover from and hide the criminal conspiracies that they are in fact involved in. What is a little strange to me here is that Elon would have put out the tweet that he did at the time, which ultimately I think was probably one of the few accurate things he's said on Donald Trump, given the fact that we learned what we did today. But with that said, it also makes sense why, putting aside the business and the money that Elon wants to make being involved with Donald Trump, that that relationship and breakup has continued to, bounce back and forth like a pendulum, seeing the two of them together in Arizona at the Charlie Kirk funeral, which again, Charlie Kirk should have never been killed. But to me, it wouldn't have been a funeral without fireworks, obviously, with Donald Trump.
No, of course. Yeah. And Adam, one of the things you and I talk about from time to time is just how lame the media coverage is of a lot of this stuff. And during Trump 2.0, it's about as lame. It's the lamest I've ever seen it. It's beyond lame. It's tragically awful and just completely not meeting the moment that we're in right now. Your thoughts on how the press has been covering this Trump 2.0?
It's a great question, and I think it's something that we all, probably you too, on this end, struggle with on a daily basis, because we speak about entities and legacy media as an umbrella, and when we hold those entities accountable for the lack of reporting or the lack of real questions, or exactly what the premise of your question is. Unfortunately, when somebody like me attacks that entity, it takes away from people like you at the time who were at CNN doing good work, right? And so it's always a tough balance. I mean, NBC's had a couple of really incredible reporters go over there recently, and same thing. Washington Post has recently lost an incredible reporter to NBC. I think legacy media as a whole is failing from the top down. Things are very draconian. I often say that, if the sort of older generation here is able to figure out how to put YouTube on their TV and get it in other ways, that'll be the end of it, because, survey after survey that we see shows that, YouTube and things like Substack and beyond is where people are getting their news. But with that said, it's sad to see, because there's folks that have put in their entire career, like you and many of other good friends, mutual friends of ours, that sort of get folded into that, who are trying to do their best.
Yeah. No, I like being in independent media now. I've enjoyed it. It's been great. I get to do what I want. I get to drop some F-bombs here and there. It's, I do what I want. It's great. There could be a government shutdown coming up in a few days. As putting your Democratic consultant hat back on, what should the Democrats do? I wrote a piece for Substack earlier in the day that they're talking about, Dems are saying, okay, we'll play ball with you guys if you can give us some Obamacare subsidies, to extend Obamacare subsidies, which is a great idea. That's totally fine. To me, I would say that we need a halt on ICE operations in this country for Democrats to go along with the Republicans and keeping the government running. What's happening with these ICE raids and the way that they're body slamming people and beating the shit out of people, it's totally out of control. But your thoughts on what the Democrats should do in this moment? That's just my 2 cents.
And just for my 2 cents, I totally agree with you, because I spent 15 years as a reserve with DC police, and it's really sad to see. I used to think that there was like 1 or 2 bad apples. Now I think that there's probably more than that are emboldened by what's going on. But in terms of the shutdown, my first response would probably be, hey, we need to play like Mitch McConnell. But the one thing I know about Mitch McConnell is he didn't really like shutdowns. So with that said, I think in general, Democrats need new leadership, right? I think people are always sort of surprised to hear this from me, having spent and sort of been branded as a Clinton person. But I think we've got 2 people from New York who are just not meeting the moment on the Democratic side. When you've got a mayor's race and somebody follows the process and does what they're supposed to do, and they don't receive the endorsement of the leaders, and the leaders, at least one leader on the House side, decides that they're going to vote for a Charlie Kirk resolution before they endorse the guy who went through the process and won the Democratic nomination for mayor.
Jeffrey's not supporting
Hakeem, Hakeem, it's a problem. Same thing with Jay Jacobs, who is a longtime friend of mine, but Jay Jacobs should not be the state party chair. You know, he's been a great bundler, great donor, but if you're going to not endorse that, you shouldn't be there. With that said, putting that aside, and I think Hakeem's done a good job holding the caucus together, I think that we should shut the government down. And it's not going to be us. It's going to be the Republicans. We need to step up and play like them. It's the same thing I've said for years about Citizens United. You can be against Citizens United, but it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. We cannot unilaterally disarm as Democrats anymore. We have to fight fire with fire. I've been saying it for 6 years. A lot of people used to give me a ton of shit about it. And we are, you know, where we are today. And I think it's time that Democrats really step up. There's been polls recently that have come out that show that people look to folks like AOC as leaders. You know, our party spends more time trying to minimize the voices of people like Jasmine Crockett than they do lifting them up. And one thing that Bill Clinton told me back in 2002 that has always stuck with me is, you know, winning is about addition, not subtraction. And I think that this party spends more time focused on what we can do to silence important voices or play by the rules like they existed when we had, you know, people like our law and order friend from Tennessee in the Senate and John McCain and others, Craig Smith of Wyoming, you know, a U.S. Senate where you used to be able to name all 100 senators and you had respect no matter who they were. Lindsey Graham, who at the time when I worked for Hillary, used to do Bible study every Sunday with Hillary Clinton. That's not where we are today. And we need to,
it's been ripped to shreds. Yeah.
It's been ripped to shreds and we need to fight back. We need to stop this, but we also need to look ahead and assuming there are going to be elections, we need to prepare to make sure we have the right leadership so that if we do take things back, we don't play like we've been playing year after year after year.
Yeah. Well, and people forget, I mean, Bill Clinton was hardly the establishment choice back in 1992 when he became the Democratic nominee and then went on and won the presidency. He took the country by storm. He didn't really build a movement, I guess, in the way that Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders built a movement. He just outsmarted and out-hustled a lot of establishment politicians at that time. And so people forget that he was a bit of an upstart back in the day.
That's such a good point that you make. Most people don't realize, and I think you know Craig Smith from Arkansas back in the day. What they did was, I think it was November or December, but they got in 1991 right at the end. And it was something that Hillary Clinton always wished that she could do, was have a very short campaign. When she ran against Donald Trump, that wasn't the case based on when he got in. But, you know, Barack Obama was something very special in the coming back from obviously when he gave that critical speech in 2004 at John Kerry's convention.
Yeah, and Barack Obama was not the establishment choice. Hillary Clinton was the establishment choice in 2008, and Barack Obama, David Axelrod, and those guys said, "Well, you know, hey, we're gonna elbow you out of the way, and this is going to be us." And I think that's how democratic politics work, and it's a little surprising to me to see the leaders sort of kind of hold Mom Donnie, by the wayside there. And not give him the chance that he's earned. I mean, he's earned this chance in New York.
Yeah, so, to me, it's shocking. I mean, to go back, and I've been very critical of my party on a couple New York. I've said we have a New York problem in New York and in DC. That being when things started happening with Eric Adams, our leaders refused to say anything. And at the time, Hochul was in the same spot. I mean, to me, this was a layup. If anybody has somehow learned from that lesson, it was the governor of New York, who, despite the fact that, you know, she came out and triangulated a little bit in her endorsement, she still made the endorsement.
She did it.
And, and she did it in a way, that I think people were comfortable with. Yeah,
I have to say, there are times when I'm very impressed by Kathy Hochul, and people might want to throw a shoe at me for saying that, but I think, you know, she's settled things down in New York, and it's, you know, it's not Andrew Cuomo, it's not been a shit show, at least not yet. At least we hope not. But
I'll say, Jim, the other thing too, to me, that was a little surprising, knowing Bill Clinton as well as I do, is when he got behind Cuomo in that primary. If you go back to his administration, there were two people that he never was really a fan of in the administration, and that was Bill Richardson and Andrew Cuomo. So when I saw Bill Clinton come out and endorse Andrew Cuomo, to me, that was like, all right, they're all in throughout the party to do, whatever they can to stop this guy. And I think the guy carried pretty much everything except for maybe, Nadler's district, which will be an interesting congressional race.
That will be interesting
considering that Cuomo outperformed him there. But again, people in New York, even in that race, need to remember that you're going to have people who voted for Andrew Cuomo, and you're going to have people that voted for Zoran that might be interested in you. So once again, be about addition, not subtraction.
And I think the Dems are just a little bit in the wilderness right now. This happens when you're out of power and you kind of don't know what you're doing, and you're fumbling around. You're in the forest. And I was started to write about this, and then I got pissed off about the ICE raid, so I wrote about that. But I really enjoyed the excerpt from Kamala Harris's book, where she outs Gavin Newsom for going hiking and not calling her back when she was in this pickle, after Joe Biden had that disastrous debate performance. And she was like, what do I do? Should I jump in? How should I do this? And she reached out to Gavin Newsom, and he texted back, gone hiking. And then she wrote, he never got back to me, or something like that. And I just thought for a moment there, I was like, okay, we need more of that, where she just said, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to put it in my book. And, and I just, there's sort of an authenticity deficit in the Democratic Party right now. And whenever we see glimmers of it, I think the folks at home are saying, aha, that's it. I want that. It's like that meme of Leo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. They're pointing at the TV and saying, that's what I want.
It's like the two.
You know what I mean?
Split screen we have right now. Yeah, look, I think that look, first of all, that's so true. It's something that people wanted to see more of from Hillary, right? And Hillary is, I've basically spent my entire adult life one way or another working with her, and she's 1,000 times smarter. So I will never be in a position to criticize her thinking and all that. However, the Hillary that I know is the Hillary, that when we had our baby and we had an issue, she was the first person there, and she got us a night nurse for a month, and she talks exactly the way that you were just talking. And so Hillary has said this before, and so has Kamala, but the higher that women, Hillary's words, reach, the more their negatives go down, or negatives go up, the more they're hated and so forth. Yeah. And I think what we saw from Kamala is her truth, her story, something that not only she deserves to tell, but we've gone basically 9-10 months with people telling her story for her. And the Gavin piece, I think, goes twofold. One, there's a history between the two of them. When he was running for governor, senator, a pause, sort of, who's going to run for what, kind of the same thing we see in Ohio right now with Sherrod Brown, and whether Tim Ryan's ultimately going to run for governor. But at the same time, she'll probably be the first to say that Gavin was one of the best communicators and surrogates that was out there after that. But to me, on his part, that was political malpractice. And but she also owned it at the start. She said that she wishes that she had stepped up and said something where there was just sort of this assumption that Joe Biden was running again. Joe Biden was the perfect candidate at the perfect time to bring this country together, win, and heal this country. He was not who we should have had, and for reelection, and it just sort of moved so quickly. There was never a conversation about it.
Yeah. We should do this again, Adam, because I want to talk about this stuff further. And when you get rolling on Democratic politics, it's really fun. Because the other thing I was going to say is, I think Kamala Harris should have picked Pete Buttigieg.
I do too. And I had a whole conversation with Waj Ali about this the other day. Again, I think that would have brought out a lot more people than some of the folks that decided to stay home. Our party is always too afraid of our base. And I always say Republicans don't win elections. Democrats lose them, and they speak to their base. And it is time that we listen to our base, we bring them together, and we do these things that are risky, but high risk, high reward.
Totally. Absolutely. Great to see you, man. Great to see you, Adam. Let's do it again soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Good to see you.